Now, some parts of Kwazulu-Natal are bracing for severe thunderstorms tonight. The province's Cooperative Governance Department says it has placed disaster management teams on alert following a level 4 warning for the south of the province. For more on the state of readiness and which areas are likely to be affected, I'm joined by Dr Elias Sithole, who is the head of the National Disaster Management Center. Dr Sithole, thank you so much for your time as well then this evening. Let's unpack just very quickly, if you'll allow, just the severe warnings and the readiness, so the state of readiness, should I say then, for the National Disaster Management Center.
Yes, good evening to the viewers. Yes, as we have reported in the past 2-3 months, during the start of the summer season, we reported that all our disaster management centers across the country, they will be on standby in the teams so that if anything happens, then we are able to urgently or quickly respond to assist those affected communities. Maybe just to indicate what you just said in terms of the early warnings which we have received. Yes, you are correct. As from the 1st of December this year, some part of the KZN, they've been affected. Some of the municipalities heavily affected by these severe weather events. But we are continuously making sure that those municipalities affected and the communities are being assisted.
Are you able to detail any further with regards to those areas? I mean, you've just made note of one or two there. Just any further sort of areas and areas that should be perhaps a little bit more concerned about whether they could be affected or impacted as well by severe weather conditions?
Yeah, the coastal area municipalities, because some of the municipalities have already been affected. For example, like your Ugu, when you go to the inner part of the KZN province, your Mzinyati, Umgungundlovu, King Cetshwayo, those municipalities have already been affected, but the early warnings which we have received indicate that those coastal municipalities, they might be also being affected as and when we experience these rainfalls.
What methods are there, Dr. Sithole, to alert residents as well to all of these disasters or severe weather patterns that we're obviously seeing, adverse weather patterns, flooding and the like? Are there ways for them to contact the National Disaster Management Center or for the contact center to also manage or rather contact them when something like this happens? And what perhaps could be in place at present? Are you looking at high-lying areas in which you could house a few people, if possible, if needed, for a situation like this?
Yeah. As soon as we receive the early warning from South African Weather Services as a National Disaster Center, we make sure that that information is disseminated to provinces and also to the municipalities. That's one. Two, also we make sure that all our standby teams that are being activated in the centers and the structures, all those structures also are being activated. Thirdly, but also we make sure that the low-lying areas where we know that those communities, they might be affected, we go closer to those communities so that we monitor if there's a river running across that settlement. We monitor that river so that if there's a need to relocate the communities, and then we do that before the communities actually are being affected. But also, in some of the areas, we do have community halls, some of the structures where we can house the communities if need be. But when we do that, we also activate our stakeholders, like our NGOs, so that they can assist us to provide some of the services to those communities who might be relocated to community halls or any other structures.
Dr. Sithole, one thing I know for sure as Newzroom Afrika, we do not mind ensuring that we let people know as well. So we would love to also be a place for people to know that we would be able to disseminate information and that kind of data when something like this was to happen to them. But I wanted to also find out whether you'd be working with whether it be cell phone providers or communication companies, for example, as well, to alert any residents and the like in order to evacuate a particular area, that the National Disaster Management Center is doing that. Are you able to share whether you're in communication with that sort of company?
Yeah, the South African Weather Services, when they disseminate early warnings, they make sure that they use all the platforms available that include your social media and so on and so forth. And also from our side, we make sure that when opportunity arises and we do disseminate those informations to some of the networks companies so that they can actually alert their subscribers in terms of the early warning which we have received.
Yeah, in doing so, of course, being very important to be able to give consumers the best possible chance of avoiding the situation. I just wanted to ask you, Dr. Elias Sithole, is the National Disaster Management Center well funded? And I say well, I suppose it's very difficult because it'll depend on the disaster. But thus far, have you been able to, fulfill the needs as set out by your mandate?
Look, the operationalization of the disaster center, I would say, is work in progress. Because what we are currently doing, we are reviewing the disaster management system in the country so that we're able to reach all the corners of South Africa. So at this stage, I would say it is funded based on the capacity which it has. But moving forward, I think as we work with Treasury and other departments, we'll need more resources so that we can bring more capacity in the National Disaster Center. But not only the National Disaster Center, we also need to focus to provinces and also to the municipalities. So as I've indicated, it's a work in progress, but we are making sure that the resources which we have, we can deploy them ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously would include staffing and headcount as well, which would be very important as well. Just perhaps if you could share as well as the National Disaster Management Center, just alertness, what things that consumers and residents, etc., and the like should be wary and aware of at a time like this when you have adverse weather patterns as well as flooding.
Yeah, we have a drowning incident which happened in Gauteng, in Centurion area. I would say the communities must be careful when they're, driving on the road, especially when they're approaching the low-lying bridges. Because as we're experiencing the rains, they might not be raining here, but maybe on the upper part of the river, it might be raining. And then when you're driving on that road, you might be surprised by the water. So people, they must be alert as they're driving in those areas.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at some of the visuals we're showing actually now on screen, I mean, they're certainly harrowing and certainly worrying. It's a tough task that you have ahead, Dr. Elias Sithole, but we really appreciate it and we wish you all the best with it as well. The head of the National Disaster Management Center.